Research has shown that companies with the best employer branding are most likely to attract top talent, which will aid them in becoming an industry leader. Global employer branding company Universum conducts research globally to determine the most attractive employers. We'll be hearing from them a little bit later in the show. But in studio with us to discuss this week's cover story is Finweek journalist, that's Buhle Ndweni. Buhle, thanks so much. This is always an interesting one when it comes to employers. You've interviewed a lot of companies. Tell us what makes them attractive.
Well, as you said, Universum did this research, and what really makes them attractive are opportunities that they provide for students out there. If a student goes into the company or as a potential employee, are they going to get opportunities to grow? Are they now going to also have the right work-life balance? Because the research also shows that is one of the main things that students are also looking for. It's not just about the money. So in other companies or other students would actually look at the innovation activities or projects that the company is involved in and think, well, if they're involved in that, then I would definitely love to be part of it.
What was also interesting from this particular research was that state-owned entities were still ranked at the top. We've seen negative headlines around state-owned entities. Why do people still want to work for them?
Okay. The thing about it is, as much as there are those negative headlines, you sometimes find that these state-owned entities have got capital projects that they're working on. For instance, Transnet has got infrastructure projects so that they have engineering students actually ranked it as a top 2 company that they find as the most attractive employer. And then you look at the likes of Eskom. You know, they might not have enough money for capital projects, but they actually do sponsor a lot of students, and so that feeds into their pipeline. So eventually, because they're treating well their talent, talent will work for them and find that it's quite an interesting place to work at.
I just want to go back to the first point. I know that you mentioned that it's not just about the money, it's work-life balance. I know that you're not the expert here, and this is what you were doing in terms of your research, but how much of that had a weighting? So would you find that if people were saying you would be paid 20% less, but you would have more work-life balance? I don't know, is that something that you'd be able to comment on?
No, let me rather leave it
we'll
to
leave it to the experts.
Yeah, true.
All right, you mentioned students and what's important to them.
Yeah.
Are there different strategies that we're seeing these companies employing in order to get attention? So what are they doing? Are they in social media?
For instance, South African breweries obviously goes back on campus, speaks to these students, but then what they also do is they have their former graduates go on campus and say, hey, this is how we're finding the working place there, and that feeds into the environment. And then while speaking to KPMG, obviously they'll be later on in the show, but what they do is if they have a former alumni or someone that works for them that is passionate about lecturing, they're like, go ahead, go for it. And because the students on campus actually see this lecturer from that company, it feeds to say, okay, we really would love to work for that brand. You know, it's an appealing brand to us. And then Telkom has got the same program whereby they have bursaries where they sponsor students, but also for professionals. What they do is they tend to have a very good or interactive LinkedIn careers page. And then that is where they actually attract their professionals to actually come into Telkom and work for them.
It's all about work-life balance, yes, money, but people development also very key.
Yeah, and are you innovative enough? Are you going to push me to the next level in terms of my career and retain me? But then the experts will say more.
Well, looking forward to that conversation.